Hey everybody, it's your boys here to lament another L. We streakin'. We gonna play the song now.
We're only strangers. We're only strangers until we realize. This life is temporary. Life is temporary. An illusion we must fight. An illusion we must fight. Open up your eyes. We're gonna be alright.
I thought we'd be all right, but AJ, I'm not too sure now. Two successive losses on the trot, opening West Tigers Faithful, episode 27. Joe McCord, how are you, mate?
Oh, I've been better.
Would you like to explain why?
Oh, I'm just, deja vu, West Tigers. You know how it is. Remember last year when I went through that patch where I was obsessed with making AI-generated music and I made that song that went, "We won two in a row, confidence." Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Should play that one for the audience. Oh, it's got too many slurs in it.
In this instance, we've lost two in a row, but we're going to try and dissect where we're at a little bit. Surprise. We're 2-3, same as last year, but I think things are a little bit different, and we'll talk about that. And obviously, we'll preview the Knights game and everything like that as well. And it will lay the platform for what I would like to do next week, which is the quarterly review. It'll be the first quarter of the season will be done. We'll have a look at some key stats and dissect. But in the meantime, we've got a loss to dissect, as we mentioned at the top. A loss to Brisbane in Brisbane on Saturday night, 46 points to 24. Quite interesting. It was actually 7 tries to 5. We just didn't kick our goals. Mac, you were there. Unfortunately, first loss you have seen in person. Tell me, sort of walk me through what you saw.
Before I do, if you want to chuck this one up on Twitter, just jump on the YouTube and copy the URL and post it up on the Twitter.
Will do.
All right. What did I make of that game? I felt like that we almost for, well, I won't say for the 80 minutes, but like I felt like we, for at least like probably 60 of the minutes, were the better side. And I would say that like on the overall, we were the better side. But in the minutes that they got on top of us, obviously, they managed to really rack up points, and we didn't utilize the minutes that we were on top the same way they did. I personally feel like if the team can, avoid falling into a place of mental despair off the back of that, it wasn't that bad of a loss. Like it was a pretty good. It should have been pretty good confidence building result considering how well we stacked up with them, how well we controlled Payne Haas. The fact that we managed to score enough points to win most games. It's a weird one for me. For me, if I'm Benji, because I'm not 100% sure whether to give the team excuses or not. Like, usually you don't want to try to give the team excuses, but in this situation, maybe you kind of do, because you kind of don't want to rock their confidence too much. And there are excuses there, because as you said, 7 tries to 5. One of their tries was not a fucking try. Like, the Selwyn Cobbo pass that went, 2 kilometres forward was not a try. There was the Reece Walsh cutout pass was forward, but like one of those ones that is a coin flip. Like it's one of those ones where, the referee sometimes calls them and sometimes doesn't. And then the first try that Arthur scored was fucking knock on all day of the week. So like really there's, and then Royce Hunt's try gets disallowed from like a call that never gets called.
Hey,
So like you
it gets called in West Tigers games
so
again.
you can see like even without the goal kicking, like if everything's equal and fair, we're in that game up to our eyeballs for 80 minutes. Um, but that being said, even beyond that, like we kicked those first three goals and go ahead 18-6. You know how the Broncos are. They're a fragile team mentally. Like they might have just fallen to pieces off the back of that, the same way they did against Canberra. And that's how I felt. Like that's what it felt like was happening. Because I thought that the risk with the Broncos was that they would blow us away too quickly. And that first try, God, I was worried. And then like we got back on top of them so fast. I was like, at that point, especially when we scored that third try, I was like, Jesus, I didn't think we'd get on top of the Broncos this fast. The game script did not go the way I thought it would.
It was a really interesting timeline. I think you're absolutely right. Look, the bottom line is that the class and experience of Adam Reynolds and Ben Hunt showed. We shut down Payne Haas, but ultimately, I think those two were the difference. Not many halves can kick a 40-20 straight after coming out of the sheds.
Yeah, that was a
Okay,
ripper.
I don't think there's a halfback in the league that can put a chip kick in the way that Adam Reynolds did. I was critical of Jareem Buller privately, when watching the game back, and to be quite honest with you, now I look at it, I just go, it's just a perfect kick. It was a simple.
Yeah, in the stadium at the time, I couldn't fault him. The only thing I faulted Buller for was dropping the bomb. But
Yeah, there was that. Yeah, that one hurt, and obviously the 40-20 hurt. But again, what halfback can do that? It's only a
he,
better.
that 40-20 was that 40-20 was a 40-20 no matter what fullback was on the other team.
True. Yeah, look, it's just one of those things. Look, um, I've said it a few times. I think full strength, we would have went closer. I think our defensive combinations would have been better. Luai's poise and his class, also his kicking game, Latu just hasn't developed it yet. I think would have helped us to no end. Even though I have been slightly critical of his fifth tackle options in the past, I think our forward pack stood up. Alex Twal's first stint was phenomenal, to be quite honest. But I said it on X the other day on the account that the speed and the intensity on both sides of the ball that we showed in the first 35, it has to be minimum standard moving on. And I promise you and I promise our listeners that if we bring that every single week and we try our best to ensure that we do keep that up for 80 minutes, mate, we'll make the top 8. Like I am that confident.
Yep, the team has put enough on the field now for me to share your confidence. They're a good team, but they are the West Tigers, and what's going on inside their collective heads. And also, geez, we have bad depth, man. Like
Yeah.
we're playing 2 players short of a top 30 roster to begin with. We've got 2 players not even playing reserve grade. Like, yeah, the team stays healthy and we can make the 8 for sure. As long as they don't fall into a pit of despair.
Yeah. Let's just talk about some things on both sides of the ball. Again, look, defensive combos weren't where they needed to be because we had a few players out. But in saying that, you have to rise above that. To me, it looked like we were a little vulnerable when Brisbane went shot for shot. So just for those who sort of don't understand rugby league lingo, when they spread the ball, block for block shape, quite often, try and drag some defenders in to create overlaps on the outside. And I remember one of their tries, they went left. And then, typically teams sometimes will have a settler and then they'll go back. They'll go back to that side or they'll go to the opposite, to the open side where they've got, if they get a split, they went shot. And we weren't up for that. And look, the good teams do that. And, that's something that we're really going to have to deal with because when you play teams like Melbourne, when you play teams like, look, I don't think they're a great team, but they do it, South, Penrith to a lesser extent as well. They're teams that can really hit you quickly, and you really got to recycle quickly and get to your assignment. Look, I thought that Lockie had some moments there that he would probably like to have back, particularly the first Willison try. I know he was just getting to his feet, and sometimes players can hold on to you, or you lose your footing, but. look, at the end of the day, he missed his assignment there, and that was pretty disappointing. The second Willison try, it looks like sleight of hand from Corey Pakes, but it's just a block at the line. He was just held up a little bit, and we've got to be better there. And teams are going to see that a little bit, that if you can pull a player out of the defensive line, there's going to be a gap in behind. So, on that person's inside shoulder, we've got to be really, really mindful of that. And that's going to be something that I think that they'll fix pretty quickly. And furthermore, I think it would have been Luai there at that time. Defensive stats after points weren't good enough a few times, which I think hurt us. But again, they're a very, very good team and they're quite lethal. But I'll tell you what, like attack, like that's the best it's looked in. Look, obviously this year, but probably in a couple of seasons, and we didn't.
Wild, isn't it? Because
Say again?
I said that's wild, isn't it? Because Luai wasn't there.
Yeah, that's right, and that's a big thing. But
It's a
Marshall always
question.
Marshall always said that the attack would evolve and that it would change a little bit, but I did not expect to see Terrell May get the ball 2 or 3 wide off the ruck, shape inside for a block shape. That was pretty impressive. Jack Bird was doing a bit of ball playing too, a little bit more than what he was doing in the earlier weeks. It's really, really exciting seeing this come together, and I think it's only going to create even further opportunities for one Jerome.
Yeah, I really want to see Jerome Luai like come out of this lull period, because if he can get to the level that he was playing at Penrith last year, playing 7 for us, like we'll be a proper force. But right now, going into last week's the Broncos game, I had some thoughts that maybe we would look better in attack without him, because I don't feel like him and Galvin have found a balance. And I suspected that, the problem with that balance has been that he's been trying to give Lockie too much ball to his own detriment, not playing, his own brand of football, whereas like which looks worse for him than it does for Fainu, because Fainu is a young player that you kind of expect to defer to Galvin, because Galvin's got more experience and he's got more he's more involved in the structure. So when you watch Luai and Galvin play, you kind of like focus on the fact that Luai is kind of not doing that much, whereas when you watch Fainu and Galvin play, it doesn't stand out so much. And Galvin kind of also at the same time, I felt like Galvin without that kind of reliance on Luai controlling the game and steering around and feeding him the ball, he just went, I'm just going to play what's in front of me for 80.
Yep.
And he played, honestly thought that it was his best game of the season. I like the defensive lulls like aside, I thought that Galvin looked better as the controlling player in the team than he has looked like being fed pill by Luai personally at the ground. His impact might not translate so well on TV, maybe because like when you can see the game 360, you can kind of like see just how much work he does off the ball, and just how much like hustle he does. He's always chasing the line breaks. He's always chasing kicks. He's always like running across the field, and it kind of gives you a bit more respect for, and also forgiveness for the bad things he does.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do think it was his best game of the season, and I put it largely down to the fact that he looked like he was just playing. It was his team, and he was doing whatever he felt like. I actually think for the most part, most of the team played good. I can't really like fault too many of them.
I agree with you. Look, there was some schoolboy errors made by some players, and I mentioned Lockie before, and I think singling him out is unfair. I was just talking about a couple of different key moments. Jack Bird had some lapses. Alex Twal dropped that ball when he shouldn't have. But ultimately,
That Alex 12 drop was so backbreaking.
yeah, it was. And as I said before, like his first stint was exceptional. Jareem had the knock on. Like it wasn't necessarily anybody had a shocker, but there were a few players that just had an error at a time where we really, really couldn't afford it. And against a team like the Broncos, it's unfortunately, you're going to come undone.
I was going to say before, I think that the Broncos definitely, like you can easily say that we weren't up to par, but I really think that you have to tip your hat to Brisbane a lot here because they did like have to redline themselves pretty hard to break our back. Like when I say that, I mean like you're talking about clutch low percentage plays they pulled
Oh,
off to make that happen. Like that 40-20 clutch low percentage play, the chip and chase bounce, very low percentage play. So in that respect, I think that I also kind of feel like that the Tigers still aren't playing enough unstructured football, if that makes sense. Like I feel like when we attack from our own half and spread it in our own half, or like when Galvin actually does something outside the structure, it actually works to a pretty high percentage, I feel, but they kind of stick to the structure a lot. We haven't seen them just go, you know what, like we're feeling ourselves yet, let's go. Not once yet this season, really. Like for example, he put a grubber through for Luke Lolalii on the first tackle. They scored a try. Like that's I'd like to see, honestly. I'd like to see the Tigers chance it a bit more. I wonder whether Benji, because of his like own predisposition to being so unstructured and so freewheeling, isn't maybe like overcompensating in the way that he trains people. Like maybe he goes back the other direction and like is like, I don't want to come across like I'm, a cowboy like I was as a player. Or maybe like he as he developed throughout his career, he found respect for the types of footballers that he's not one of, and kind of like, you know what I mean? Like it feels
yeah.
like that a little bit to me.
So you don't hear Marshall say much about coaching philosophy or structure, but you can hear bits and pieces. I remember there was an interview that Coruscant did at the back end of 23 and said, you wouldn't think it, but Marshall is incredibly structured. And he says that off the cuff football comes from having structure, and you break out of said structure should you see something. And I think that's pretty clear. There's been a couple of times where we've definitely played unstructured, mainly the Parramatta game. But for the most part, you're right. They're very, very regimented, and they stick to a plan. I would love to see, hypothetically, we sort of go to right post or left post, and then have sort of a, if Luai sees an overlap, calls the ball, or a 4-on-4, a flat four, and call that ball and sort of just play footy. I'd love to see it. I agree. I think that round one, we completely had the shackles on, and we're obviously playing Newcastle this week. But second phase was a big, big part of it. And we're offloading the ball a lot. We're offloading the ball a fair bit early in the season. Now I feel like they've pulled it back a little bit because they feel as if they can score points regardless, which I find is quite an interesting shift in philosophy. Do you agree?
Yeah, yeah. I think that I think it's great. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, even with the structure that they're playing to, like they're scoring 5 tries a game,
Mm,
like which is enough to win most games. But the problem I feel is that they look more like a 7 try a game side. Like the attacking flair in the team, the skill of the team, they look like they're a side that really should and could be blowing sides away. Like the fact that they managed to actually like put 5 tries past Brisbane while conceding 7 kind of indicates that.
yeah.
Like if they had have like limited the amount of tries that Brisbane conceded, that's kind of you kind of end up scoring more. So like I feel like that to me it'll a lot relies on Luai figuring things out. One other thing that I kind of wondered in that game was why they gave Talon only 25 minutes. Because like I actually thought that he made a pretty good difference when he came on the
He
field.
looked good, didn't he? Yeah.
He almost scored a try with like that like real good run, and
Mm.
then he was like blinking, he was gone. I think he only got 24 minutes on the field or something like that. Like I don't know.
Yeah, I worry about the fact that Marshall sees a good team on the calendar and says we need Uppy out there for as long as possible. And I think it's, and I don't know this for certain, but yeah, that worries me a little bit. Like I feel like Talon's had a few more minutes against other teams, and those teams haven't been as good. So I'm curious. I agree with you though. He was lightning quick getting out of hooker. Like, he looked properly dangerous. But mate, that actually leads me to my next point, and that's his bench rotation. Um, I'm really concerned by the fact that, and I love Sione Finu, but I'm really concerned with the fact that we are currently seeing Royce Hunt only getting on in the second half. For me personally, I think you look at the Redcliffe game, and he was partially responsible. Him, Jack Bird, and Talon all played a role in momentum swinging back in order for us to win that match. Do you think that it's more we just had a couple of injuries? So obviously Jack Bird filled in for Sam Weller on the weekend. Do you think it's just more that at the minute? Or do you think this is a plan moving forward, or is Marshall just making changes as he sees fit, or has Sione jumped Royce in the pecking order and he gets on earlier? What are you seeing?
I mean, ugh, I don't know. To be honest, I kind of agree with you that it's weird. What worries me is it sort of follows the pattern that Fitzgibbon had for Hunt last year.
Yeah,
So I'm just wondering whether it's something to do with Hunt. Like there's something that we as fans aren't seeing in his performances on the field that the coaching staff are privy to, or maybe Hunt himself is privy to. Maybe his maybe he genuinely does gas to the point where like he literally can't he runs straight off the field or something. Who knows? Like there might be something weird going on. Sione, I don't know about jumped him, but he definitely got his minutes in the Brisbane game. And I could see that being just like them, rotating Sione into larger minutes just to see how he goes. And honestly, I thought he went really well, so I don't necessarily fault them for that. I agree with you that like the Redcliffe game, like it was when Royce Hunt and Jack Bird jogged onto the field that that game turned. So I do think that getting Hunt on at the 20th or 25th minute is a really big momentum shift because of the way he runs the football. Um, so I don't know. Yeah, jury's out. Am concerned just like you. I don't know. Joel's is in the chat here going, Joel's. He says the comment about ad lib within the structures on the money, and he thinks kicking on the first tackle of a repeat set is an indication that they have a license to do so. And of course, I agree. I think my point more so was that I don't know necessarily whether the team, aside from Lachlan, agrees. Like it seems to me like Lachlan's the only one who's actually willing to actually do anything outside the structure right now. So for me, I would like to see maybe Talon a little bit as well, to be honest, which is maybe why I kind of think his minutes stand out more. Like when he's on the field, it just seems like more's happening. Like he's, running the football from dummy half and creating a little bit more chaos, which it seems to. I like that about our side. It feels like that those are times when we have momentum. We got Phil from Salford here. He says, "Good morning, g'day, Phil." But yeah, back to the point at hand. I agree with you. I'd like to see Royce Hunt come on earlier too.
I think this weekend will probably give us a little bit more of an idea, which, because again, we're full strength and we'll talk about that a little bit more a little bit later. A quick hello to Joel's, long time listener, and I know he's a very, very passionate WTF listener, but I will happily go out on a limb and say that Joel's is the best poster on the West Tigers forum. Go and have a look at his latest. It's a critical essay on how to win the ruck. I think it is. It's
Oh, really?
it is exceptional. He's a hooker from way back. A very very skillful dummy half I hear, and and quite a successful man in the construction industry. So go and have a look at that. But I hope he's not blushing through the other side of the screen. Um, uh, we spoke about talent a little bit, and him staying on wasn't necessarily the fact that Uppy was playing bad. I actually thought Uppy was amazing. I really find it quite interesting what he's doing at the moment. The way he's sort of pulling backwards like a quarterback at the try line, and then sort of having a couple of decoys run through, and then
You mean Uppy?
yeah.
Yeah, it's weird, eh?
It's interesting.
It
That
works.
it does. Well, it nearly created that try for Luke Lallee. I don't know how the fuck he didn't throw a bullet past there and hit him on the chest. You're a dummy half, Uppy. Like, that should have been another one. But at the same time, look, Brisbane squandered opportunities. But look, to your point, we are creating tries everywhere. It's and without doing it so much within away from structure, which is great signs, and it just makes me think that we're 2-3 like we were last year, but fuck, we are a totally different team, right? Are we seeing the right things?
I think it's a really good sign that the young players that Benji's persevering with are actually like performing really well. Luke Lolalii, that was a pretty gutsy call bringing him straight into the side off of one New South Wales Cup game, and he brained it. Like he was really good. Obviously, he's young. He's prone to the odd error here or there. He almost bombed the try that he scored.
Yeah.
But that being said, belts Reece Walsh. Like, he hits that kid. Talon and Galvin obviously are killing it. And, everybody else who they have, blooded minutes kind of have gone back to the drawing board with. So it does. I do really rate Benji's eye for talent, honestly. I feel like he's actually I feel like that's gonna, in the long run, turn out to be his strength as a coach, is his like young player developmental eye and his ability to bring them on quickly. Saying that, speaking of Luke Lolalii, I'm really worried about that kid, man. Like the way that he runs and the way that he tackles, like he's like having 10 car accidents a game, and for a kid that's 18 who's already had like a multiple week stint on the sideline for concussion protocol, it brings to mind some players of the past that like I'm really concerned. Like I'd love to see an 18-year-old winger hit the Tigers first grade team and take the league by storm. Me, like I love shit like that, but at the same time, imagine how good Luke Lolalii is going to be if we let him develop. Like, if he can spend two quality seasons in flag and New South Wales Cup, just coming on at the pace that he should be, and then you bring him out as a 20-year-old, he's going to be elite, man. That kid's ceiling is astonishing.
It is. Probably begs the question that being a winger, I think you probably have to take a few more yardage carries. You're expected that as part of your job. Now, don't get me wrong, the centres do have a role to play, but I don't think they take as many runs. What do you think we do with Luke? It's a tough one because I think on the wing he's probably exposed to more of those carries, and as we've mentioned, if we're thinking about his longevity at West Tigers and in the game of rugby league in general, we might need to reassess the positional change. The club's all in on Jareen Buller, and Luke's native position was as a fullback, but he's also had a bit of time in and around the centres. But the problem is that he's a left-hand carry, the exact same as he and Musi Makasini. Is there an opportunity for him to be moved to right centre, hypothetically? He does have that, he has the skills of a fullback. He was quite a skillful ball-playing fullback in the last 12 months before he, moved into the first grade system. Is that something that we look at?
I think that he's a winger. Like, I think he's got potential to be an elite winger in the NRL. He might be an elite centre or an elite fullback. Don't get me wrong, but like I think it's evident that he's got the potential to be an elite winger. So, you have to kind of view his at least like most likely week to week position as winger. But that being said, like he's not going to be the first choice winger in the NRL this year whenever Skelton and Taruva are healthy. So in order for him to kind of, just develop and continue to just grow and get stronger, because I don't, how do I say this? If you play him at fullback or center in reserve grade, I don't think it matters too much. Like, I don't think it's like his development as a winger is going to be slowed down by playing fullback and center in New South Wales Cup. Quite the opposite. I think that he's already good enough as a winger. Like, I don't think like he needs to go back to New South Wales Cup and play on the wing down there to like learn the intricacies of wing play. Fullback probably, because at least then he can get reps in catching bombs and stuff like that. But like, yeah, I think maybe what I'm sort of thinking here is he probably needs to be a lower grade fullback, first grade winger, and you probably just bin the idea of him being a centre completely.
Mm.
That being said, I don't know, man. I actually, you mentioned Marcassini. Like, I don't think Marcassini's anywhere near Luke Lolalii in terms of like their first grade right now. Like, Luke Lolalii proven that he can cut it. Marcassini's not played a minute of New South Wales Cup yet, so like you can't like talk about Marcassini as being ahead of Luke Lolalii as a potential centre candidate for the NRL right now. That's just
Not
being
right
a
now.
Marcassini homer.
Yeah, no, not right now. I totally understand that, but just thinking in terms of long-term planning.
Well, I mean, the point I'm trying to make is if you're looking at our left centre option right now, Adam Dewey as being superseded by Marcassini as a formality, look at him as being superseded by Lalali as a formality before that happens. Like
Yeah, agreed with you. But all I'm saying is that you probably try and have a look at it now. And if you're going to give Luke time away from first grade, then you may as well think with the long term in mind and you develop him at right centre.
Yeah, it's tough, eh? Maybe you just got to roll the dice and play him a little bit at left centre in New South Wales Cup, see if he kills it. Look, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think maybe you might find Marcassini's better suited to the wing than he is to the centre as a first grader too. Like, he's a massive human being, very talented, athletic, goal kicking, and in SG ball this year, he was pretty passive as a centre. Like, at least on the wing, it forces him into the game through like taking advantage of his big carries out of our own end and puts him on the end of backline movements and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. It's a good problem to have, but
Is
I think Luke Lolalii needs to be kind of protected from himself a little bit at this point.
I agree. He's a phenomenal talent and quite frankly a phenomenal player. Youngest kid in the league and doing good things. I kind of want to move the conversation on, but he's 5 centimeters taller than Jai Gray. Jai Gray does not have the same concussion history. Now, I know they run the ball differently, but there might be some things in video that Luke can take and apply to his own running game, which might be able to help him. And, we might be able to see a bit of a change. Maybe it's as simple as a bit of like footwork that Jai tends to employ. I know that, Luke is very north-south, but, maybe that's what brings it about. But
Exactly. I think that the problem is that what makes Luke so great is that stuff. Like, what makes Luke so great is that he tries to run through the line. That he is very happy in the collision. If you teach him not to be so happy in the collision, you might blunt his impetus.
agreed. Yeah, it's a tough one, but variation is key, and they're going to have to work through that. The other guy that I want to talk about just quickly, Tony Suka. Look, we've had some assumptions for a little while that this guy tends to play to the grade that he's in. It's a small sample size, but given the quality of the opposition, I think it's fair to say that theory is true.
I mean, it's so far you've had at least one piece of evidence to back that statement up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'd necessarily agree that the standard of opposition was very high. I think that of any of the positions on the field, the Broncos are actually weak at it is back row. So
Yeah,
like
but he's
he's run.
coming up. He was defending their halves and made some very, very good tackles down low. Some real cutting plays, obviously going from the half and then, sliding off and moving across. I thought he did some good things.
I liked his running. Like, I thought that he, like, at least initially when he came on the field, his first few carries were quite strong. He's a better player than I thought he was. Sorry for being so mean, Tony.
Very nice. Anything else on the Bronx game before we move on?
Let me just quickly think about this. I mean, Jarian Buller here's him. Like, that play from the line dropout was nuts.
Is he not okay? All right. This is a big claim, right? but from based on what I've seen this year, I'm prepared to make it. Is he the best fullback in broken play right now in the entire league?
Yeah, when he gets into broken play, it's kind of almost like a try every time, isn't it?
There was the Parramatta try that he created. Obviously, that one off the dropout. He just seems once he breaks the line, as you said, it sort of feels like a foregone conclusion. Now,
He's
don't get me wrong. Guys like Ponga, guys like Turbo, guys like Teddy are phenomenal in broken play. They're better than him. They've done it for years. But right now, I don't think there's a more exciting player in broken play than Jureen Buller.
well, I don't know if I mean I'd be a bit more bold with that statement. Really, I think that in broken play he probably is their equal. Like when Ponga gets into broken play, he's very fast, but he's not as freakish. Like Buller does things that are kind of like, what? Where did that come from? Like the way I think that what maybe the biggest, most underrated thing about Buller is actually how impossible it is to tackle him one on one. Like it doesn't matter who it is. Like remember last year? Was it last year or the year before when he like just chest palmed Tino Fasua Moali like onto his
shut him down.
ass? Like one on one, he kind of beat anyone. And there was in that play where he got it from the dropout. Like there was I think it was Gachevsky. He just it's off. Like
Yeah.
these are forwards that are coming at him front to front, and it's like he's got this like agility thing where like he can use his hands and his feet and just position his body where he can just get away from people. Like,
Dude, he like teleports through tackles.
yeah, he'd be such a problem at Oztag. Like, can you imagine trying to
yeah.
actually, you know what I mean? He almost plays footy like an Oztag player because like he's always got people trying to reach him, and he's just he's so unassumingly quick off the mark. Like just he can sort of amble and then just suddenly he's out of reach. So he kind of baits defenders into trying to reach into tackles instead of actually committing to tackles. No, I'm super impressed with Buller. I'm really interested in the conversation that's been going on in the last few days about his Origin eligibility because, like, I think that in the form that he's in, and with Billy Slater being such a big fan of Jureen Buller, I think he would really be starting to put himself into Billy Slater's mind as potential winger centre.
He doesn't want to play for Queensland, mate.
I know that's the problem. Like, it's really bizarre because, like, I genuinely think that Billy Slater will be thinking about Buller because he really likes Jureen Buller, and Queensland are the sort of, Queensland is the sort of like, I don't know, the way that they do pick players. Somebody like Jureen Buller would be the sort of bolter pick I could see them making, if you know what I mean. Like, so
Yeah.
he's obviously not going to get picked for New South Wales anytime soon. But like,
Well, that's
I could
right.
totally. What's that?
You're absolutely right. And it's not like Queensland's outside backs are getting any younger.
Or that good?
Valentine Holmes,
Yeah.
Hammer's not in form at all.
Don't.
Gags filled in last in the decider. Look, that was a last minute call up because somebody was injured. But
That's what I mean. I think that you'd honestly like if Buller puts another 3-4 games in a row where he try assists, tries, line breaks, does what he's been doing every game this season. By the time that they have to sit down and actually think about it, like he's gonna be front of mind in Billy Slater's head. And there's also got to be a reason why this topic's actually suddenly come up. You know what I mean? Like
all of this said, I don't think he wants to play for Queensland.
I
So
know, but like,
it makes for a really, really interesting situation. Max disappeared. I don't know where he's gone, so I'm going to kick on. I don't know where he's disappeared to, but Newcastle Knights this weekend, Sunday, 4 o'clock. West Tigers are full strength. So to give you an idea of what that is, because it's been a few weeks, fullback Jureen Buller, wingers Sania Taruva and Jarrell Skelton returns from a minor hamstring strain that he picked up. Adam Dewey and Stafford Toa are the centres. The halves, Galvin, Jerome Luai returns from suspension. The front row, Terrell May, Api Coruscant, Fanua Bole. He's back, everybody. Samuel Afinu, Alex Seafarth, Alex Twal. The bench, The Bash Bench is back. De Silva, Hunt, Bird, and Sione Fainu. Mate, are you okay?
Oh man, I don't know what happened there. Some sort of technical issue. It just popped up on my screen and said no internet. Anyway, I was babbling
You're
about
back.
Dream Buller. I think thank you for pivoting so well. I saw you there. That was good. Good pivot.
Thank you.
I think that it reminds me of the Kiri situation, eh? Like, and he ended up playing Origin, didn't he? So
Yes, but he wanted to play. Oh, actually, yeah, you're right. He wanted to play for
uh,
Queensland, but that happened late in his career. So
no, I mean, but Kiri,
let's.
no, Kiri, like from a young age, said that he didn't want to play
Was a
for New South
Queenslander.
Wales, and it wasn't until late in his career that he was genuinely an option. Like they were talking about him as like maybe, but he was never really like pickable until later in his career. But as soon as it was like, nah, dude, we will pick you. At that point, he was like, "Oh, okay, I guess I'll play." I think Buller would be the same. Like if Billy Slater was like, Dream, pull your head in, mate. I'm Billy Slater. Like you kidding me?
Look, as well with Remy, as we always call him, is the great unifier of the Pacific. He could play for New
He's a
Zealand.
great unifier of the Pacific.
So
That's
wait
my
and see,
phrase.
bro.
You
Wait and
stole
see.
it. You're a thief.
Yeah, I know. I said as we called him. Yeah, it's that is like the best nickname he could ever
Yeah,
have.
he is the great unifier of the Pacific.
Oh,
I reckon that yeah, sure he could play for New Zealand, but like I get he's an Aboriginal boy and he fucking feels like his connection to country is Gumbaynggirr. So he wants to play for New South Wales because that's where his people are from. That's where my people are from. So like I get
mm.
it. Like and they're very proud Indigenous people in that part of the world. Um, although that's also where Greg
Unless you're Greg
Inglis is
Inglis.
from. So, and Greg Inglis's bull is maybe I don't know. Imagine that conversation Bull is having with Greg Inglis right now. Isn't Greg Inglis on the West Tiger staff as Bull's mate? Like
Yes.
that's such a
Yeah, that'd be an
to be a
interesting
fly on
to be
that
a
wall,
fly
huh?
on the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, let's talk this night's game, 4 o'clock Sunday. We are full strength, as I mentioned. The Knights have a few out. Adam Elliott, Jack Cogger, Jack Hetherington, Jacob Saifidi, and James Schiller, all players in their top 17. They've got young Kyle McCarthy, who's played a handful of New South Wales Cup games this year, coming in on the sting. Phoenix has gone to 7, as opposed to starting 9. Jaden Brayley's lifted up from the bench. Brody Jones is starting in the front row, would you believe it?
Oh, we're gonna win.
And their bench, Matt Arthur's debuting, great young
He is good
hooker.
stuff.
Tyrone Thompson, Leo's twin brother, is playing as well. He's also making his debut. So this is a young team, but a very, very small forward pack.
Who's out?
In terms of
Who's
say again,
out?
for
Yeah, like
Newcastle,
why is Brody Jones playing prop? Who's out?
Hetherington and Jacob Saifiti are both out.
We're gonna win.
Yeah. Look, I see that now, and that is a very, very small forward pack. Our middles just need to go to work. But look, where we can win, we're full strength. I think Jerome Luai's inclusion is going to be massive for energy levels. I think that's really going to lift the boys. And to be quite honest with you, we're a much better team than what we were when we played these guys 5 weeks ago. Our attack has come along in leaps and bounds. Our defensive combinations are better. That right edge that we were really, really worried about going up against Newcastle's left edge of Sharp, Lucas. It'll be Thomas Cant on the weekend, who is a very good player in his own right, but he's not Dylan Lucas. Ponga swinging out the back, Bradman Best, Greg Marju. I've got a lot of faith and confidence in our right edge that this week they're probably gonna. They're not going to miss their assignments. Again, I think our middles, you compare to what they had last time with Saifidi and Thompson. Jones, he tries extremely hard, but he's not a starting NRL tier front rower. It's hard to not get excited looking at this team sheet and looking at Newcastle's by comparison. What are your
My
thoughts?
thoughts are that Sportsbet need their heads read. What the fuck is that?
Yeah, get on.
$2.31
Yeah,
for the Tigers this weekend against a team that's running out a forward pack of Brody Jones, Leo Thompson, Thomas Cant, Kai Pearce-Paul, Tyson Frizzell. I don't know, man. That's pretty weak. Brent Naden's back on the extended bench. Do you think that he was our first pick round 1? Do you think there's a chance that he might come in?
No, I don't.
No?
I think that they will give Dewey a chance to keep the spot. I mean, he hasn't done anything bad, quite frankly.
His
It'll
goal kicking is pretty essential.
Yeah, well, providing he does kick. Um, so yeah, look, in terms of where we can lose, they'll be burning. To be quite honest with you, they did not score a single try against the Dogs the other day. They defended pretty well in that first half, but then fell away. I think that the grind suits us, quite frankly, but we have more points in us. It's just Kalen Ponga, to be quite honest with you. Some years and some games he's completely tore us to shreds with his attacking prowess and his flair, his ability to sort of uh, pick the right option and often overlap out the back, on the left edge. He always plays phenomenally against us, but at the same time, I'm confident looking at what we've done against marquee players on opposite teams that we'll really be able to do a job and come back from Newcastle with 2 points. What are your thoughts?
Um, yeah, look, I think that we should win this game. Phoenix Crosland, Fletcher Sharp, halves pairing. Like, don't get me wrong, Fletcher Sharp's a talented young player. Phoenix Crosland, Fletcher Sharp halves pairing is got to be the worst in the NRL right now.
Well, when it comes to field position and kicking the ball, I think Ponga's going to be doing. He's going to be doing everything.
So you pretty much got like Kalen Ponga to worry about. Like
Yeah,
Fletcher,
I mean,
Fletcher
look,
Sharp, Fletcher Sharp will run the ball every time he gets the ball. Phoenix Crosland will probably just feed the ball to other people. So like you could probably just stand off him pretty much. Um, Man, like this team should be easy to beat. I'm a Tigers fan though, so obviously you've got the reservation in the back of your mind that shit
yeah,
just goes wrong for this team. But full strength against a side that's running out what they're running out, like I don't know, like it feels like the sports bet's overcorrected off of the Broncos loss, just looking at the score line and not really looking at the actual way that we played. And
yeah,
and the home ground advantage here, I think, is negligible because we're we've won two away already this season. So like, I don't think that this side travels particularly poorly.
that's a really good point. That I actually didn't consider, and we've been to a suburban ground, in terms of KO Stadium, and came away with the
Yeah.
chocolate. So it's not something that is daunting to us. But I think the biggest thing is that this team's going to be, as in the West Tigers, are going to be fucking desperate. We lost a really, really tight match against the Warriors where there were a couple of opportunities that didn't go our way. We didn't execute on some other things, and that was a game that most certainly got away from us. And the Brisbane game, we should have realistically been up 18-6 at half time. I think that Jerome having the week off and coming back into the side is the perfect injection of energy required for us to get over the hump and get the 2 points.
Yeah, and I also remember after the Newcastle game, like Benji pretty much looked at that and went, I pulled the wrong rein with the game plan, trying to like win a conservative grind. And looking at the side that they're running out this week, like Benji's game plan is going to be let's score 5, 6, 7 tries, and I think that's what's going to happen.
Energy from the start. Hawko, the great Hawko, said it's a game for May to push his origin credentials and dominate. I completely agree. I'm really hopeful that he comes to the party.
Don't see it.
Leo Thompson's a phenomenal player, don't get me wrong, but given the form that Terrell May is currently in, I'm really expecting to make that personal and get over the top of
I'm going to
it.
say something a little bit controversial, and don't get me wrong, I think Terrell May's been probably the buy of the season, but don't see him as an origin prop.
I don't hate it. I don't hate that take. And given that he is quite similar to Payne Haas, I understand where you're coming from. I think you need a bit of variation in your middle rotation. And Payne pretty much is going to play 60 minutes in whatever arena.
The thing I don't like
So,
about Terrell May as an origin prop is I feel like he gets dominated at the point of contact, especially early in the game. Like he's a player who gets better as the game goes on, and how do I say, the force of the collision sort of slowly dies away, and then he comes into his own because he's got late footwork, he's got an offload in him, he's a bit skillful, and he's got obviously an endless gas tank. But in Origin, the way that they play in the middle, especially in the first 20, is bash and barge, and he's been dominated at the point of contact in the first 20 minutes quite a bit this year. And I feel like it's kind of gone under the radar because a lot of people look at the end results. And to his credit, like he gets up, he's an absolute machine from that perspective. He's a weird unit. He's the sort of player that I feel like might be better suited to kind of international football than just specifically the way that they play Origin. Like this, like the intensity of the Origin arena is just slightly different. It's kind of like the same reason why I think it always made sense that they, favored players like Brett White over some of the other props of the era, because they would come in and they would just win the contact, and they'd only play maybe 30 minutes, but they'd win the contact in the middle, and it's just so much more important in Origin than it is in other types of league.
Yeah. When he was first being rumoured with coming to the club, we sort of had a look, and he's always been keen to offload. He doesn't really miss tackles, but his average carry was always something that was a concern. Now, don't get me wrong, we cancelled out Payne Haas, but Brisbane also cancelled out Terrell. So you can sort of write it off, but at the same time, I completely agree with you. He's a guy that gets better as the game wears on. But in State of Origin, you've got to be ready from minute
Yeah,
one.
I think that he's just, honestly, I reckon Terrell May looks like a 13. Like, especially with his skill. Like, I feel like if you can get him to, like, be able to push out 80 minutes every week, which he seems like he can do, I don't know why you don't just pick and stick him as our 13. And just, he's going to make 40 tackles a game and 150 meters every game. He can pass. He's skillful. Why is he not a 13? Why is he a prop?
Oh, well, he is wearing the 13. Are you seeing Alex Twal turn players under and then have a block shape with a half out the back? Don't get me wrong, Alex's ball playing is improved, but he's not doing those same sorts of
The
things.
point I'm trying to make is, like, in the Tiger structure right now, who gives a fuck if Terrell May is wearing the 8 or the 13, right? But as an Origin player, he's a 13, not a prop, is what I'm saying. Like, because in the Origin arena, he needs props around him that are gonna actually wear the collision, and then he can just he's more like Yo. Like, is in my mind, like the impact he could possibly have on an Origin game is more like Yo than it is like a prop.
Yeah. Giles actually said something pretty insightful. May's style isn't about the collision. He's Twal-like in the way that he hits the line vertically and has a slow play the ball to follow. He's about the offload and the deception. Would like to see how he goes off the bench. And I don't disagree. I think he did a phenomenal job for the Chooks last year off the stick.
I don't. Just to be clear, Joel, you mean off the bench in Origin or off the bench for West Tigers? Because right now we are not playing him off the bench.
Well, no, he's saying Origin. Yeah. So what would you?
Well, I get that, but that's I guess I agree exactly. Like, that's my point. Like, and I think that off the bench in Origin, that might be okay because he comes on when the collision's out of the game. It might make sense. So from that perspective, sure. But his biggest strength is his gas tank. So if you're only going to play him off the bench, is he going to come on after 20 minutes and then play the whole rest of the game? I could buy that. But if you're just gonna if our Origin coach wants to have like bench props that come on to relieve Haas or to just play rotation minutes, you're gonna pick somebody else. So I guess what I'm saying is if you pick May, you got to pick him for a very specific purpose. But if they're just looking at standard prop play and they're just looking for standard props, I think you look elsewhere. Somebody who's really impressed me this season with their form is actually Daniel Saifidi. I actually think he's been playing really, really good for Redcliffe.
I agree with you. He's been phenomenal.
And he's more suited to Origin, in my opinion, because he stands up in the contact a lot more than May.
He's all forearms and elbows. He is fucking difficult to tackle. So, yeah, I agree with you there. The great Eshkio's back. He said, stay in there, brothers. I think we'll see you guys in the top 8 at the end of the year. Mate, you probably missed it at the top of the show. We said that if we apply the same level of intensity and we are as clinical as we were in the first 35 against the Broncos, we'll make the 8. So I'm pretty confident that we will do that.
He predicted we would beat Brisbane. And I actually think that his prediction wasn't too far off the mark.
He's saying things that most people aren't.
That's right.
Let's a score prediction before we go to the pathways. I'll go first because I typically do not. I'm going to say 38-14 in favour of the Tigers on Sunday.
I reckon we'll make it hard. honestly. I don't. I think it's the sort of game that we should win well, but I just feel like that coming off the back of two losses, we're probably going to put a lot of pressure on ourselves. I think we'll probably win like 24-20 or something.
Okay, well, it's still a win, and you know what, mate? I'll take it. Last year we were 2-3, as I mentioned a couple of times on this show, and we went on to lose another 7 or 8, which culminated finally in a hitting rock bottom against the Dragons and losing by 50 points. So I will take any win that I can get. So good luck to the boys on the weekend, and hopefully they bring the dub home from
One
Newcastle.
last thing I will say though, this is a big game, big game. 2-3. If we can't win this game, it's got it's gonna be a bad omen. Like I think that this is the sort of game that's gonna prove whether or not, or go a long way towards proving whether or not they've actually turned the corner. If we're here next week talking about three losses in a row, and one of them is to this side, how much different is this team really truly to the 2024 model? Not much
Yeah,
different. If they win and win well, we know what we've got. We've got a good team. Big confidence building win, big confidence destroying loss. Must win game.
agree with you. I think that this next month is massive for us. Obviously, a depleted Newcastle in Newcastle, Easter Monday against Parramatta. Irrespective of what type of form they're in, it's always a close game. Those fixtures. Cronulla at Leichhardt. I would normally put a line through us, but Leichhardt he's our 14th man on the field, and the Dragons at Magic Round.
Yeah, we could go 4-4. We could go 0-4. It's a big period. So I think but it starts this weekend, and I really feel like it's a must win game. If we go into that Easter Monday fixture 2-4, no. If we go in there 3-3 off the back of a big win, I think we pulverize Parramatta, to be honest.
That would be nice. We'll talk about that if and when we get to it next week. But I'm stinging for a win cast, so I'm hopeful we
We
get
can
there.
do this week's windcast over the Jersey Flex side.
Yeah, we can. We will talk about them in a moment, but I want to talk about Tasha Gale Cup and Lisa Fiaola. Tasha Gale had a win over the Sharks 16-14, whereas Lisa Fiaola went down 18-14. But it doesn't matter because both teams are playing finals this week, which is extremely exciting. On Saturday at 1 o'clock, Tasha Gale, the girls will play the Dogs at 1 o'clock, and an hour and a half later, the Lisa Fiaola girls will play the Raiders. So very, very exciting. Amazing for our women's pathways, which will only help us grow our NRLW side, which has been starved to success since its inception. So exciting times nonetheless. There was a win to finish the year for West Harold Mats against North Sydney. They didn't make it easy, but they did get it done after going down. I think it was. They got out to a 6-0 lead. Oh, no, sorry, they were down. They were down by 6. Goodfield leveled the scores. There was a couple of quick tries at minute 14 and 18 to Norths, but got there in the end, which was very, very good to see. Great to see Curtis Lakeman get on the score sheet, and good to see Siatame Havea back after that worrying neck injury a couple of weeks back. So, boys, commiserations on what was a pretty disappointing season in the end to go 3-5 after what was an incredible start of the year. But in saying that, they'll learn a lot from that and hopefully take plenty into for whether it's their second year of Mats or their first year of ball.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. I think that the pathways probably generally still maybe like 1 or 2 years away from like really reflecting how good the pathways management is, and it's largely because we have so many young players too far up pecking order in the senior teams to really actually dominate at the level that we should be. It's easy to look at the results and be like, oh, we must be overestimating the quality of these juniors. But then when you look at the fact that we've got an 18-year-old playing on the wing, a 19-year-old playing 6, a 19-year-old playing 7, a 19-year-old on the bench as a backup dummy half in first grade last week, I think that it's probably just open your eyes and think a little bit harder before you start being so critical.
I agree, and we'll talk about it at a later date. But yeah, I do agree with you. Balmain Tigers had a loss to finish their Harold Matthews campaign. They were down 26 blot at one point at the Steelers. Scored a couple of tries to make it 32-10. SG Ball was extremely disappointing. The Magpies looked like they were up for it, given the beginning of the game where they had all the they were putting all the pressure on. That pressure valve pretty much was released very quickly, with Canberra scoring 3 tries in 7 minutes. It was a very, very attacking game. It was 8 tries to 6. Canberra victorious 48-30, and the Magpies, unfortunately, we won't see them in the postseason. We've spoken about it a few times. Obviously, we've been pillaged by rival clubs. But at the end of the day, there's some phenomenal individual players in there that will benefit from this season, and they're going to be pushed up pretty quickly into higher grades, which is exciting for us. Balmain, on the flip side, had a pretty poor match to end their campaign. They were never really in it. They lost 54-6 to the Steelers, and unfortunately for them, after an incredible start to their season, they finished 9th. That said, a marked improvement and a positive season, and that's a credit to Bronson Harrison and Shane Sultana. But nonetheless, a disappointing year for both our Harold Matthews and SG Ball teams.
Yeah, it was wild. The Tigers ended the season 9th on 5 wins, 4 losses, with a points differential of -88. So that just goes to show, like, there was something that was just particularly off mentally in that team, because when they won games, they won it with grit. They won it with like structured play. The coaching was evident in the playing group. And then some weeks they just turned up and just got thrashed, and they got thrashed when it mattered the most. So I don't know, like it must be tough for those lads, because I think a lot of them, for the most part, were really playing above themselves for most of the season. Some of these young guys, like a guy like Vandry, who came from North Sydney, who don't even have like an NRL team, to come in and eventually work his way into the starting side at Balmain SG Ball, and really actually like state his claims. It was things like that and Parch and things like that that were really reflecting really well on the team and the coaching. But yeah, in some games they just seemed to fall into this like mental hole quickly, where they weren't really able to recover from, and one of those was this week defensively. Just yeah, I think a lot of it came down to the middles. If I'm being honest, I think that those middles started the season strong. They looked really workmanlike, and they were like, really in the game, really up to it, seemed professional in their approach to their footy. But being young kids, who knows what's happening off the field, who knows what's going on in their personal lives. But
Yeah.
somewhere along the season, a couple of those middles, I'm not going to name names, but a couple of those middles, there was a couple of games there where I started to see some pretty weird stuff, like from them on the field. I remember there was one week there where one of the middle boys, like, actually, shoved one of the other Tigers players and things like that. And it's just that sort of stuff that just tears the fabric of a team apart. Especially when they're the guys that are supposed to be standing up to the other team's enforcers, and instead they're kind of like having a crack at your own players. It's like, you can't really win footy games at any kind of like high quality standard when you don't have that kind of cohesion in the team socially. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough because there's some bloody good little players in that side, to be honest. But at the end of the day, when you see them bow out off a 50-point loss when it was a must-win game, it's a bad reflection on some of those guys who are otherwise really putting their names up in lights throughout the season.
I agree with you there. We'll get to Flegg in a moment, but New South Wales Cup, a really, really weird scoreline, and not too dissimilar, to be honest, to the Tigers game against the Broncos, where the Maggies were well and truly on top to begin, for probably the first 15 to 18 minutes, reflected with a try from Kit Laulii in the 14th minute. And then Manly went ballistic. Nav Willett former West Pathways player, scores a try in the 19th. Jordan Swan, 24th. Ray Vega, who just looks like the second coming of God knows what. Tanyela Tuiaki scores in the 27th. Aaron Shop, the 30th. Vega in the 33rd, and then got his hat trick in the 50th. They just blew us away. Like, you saw the game. What happened?
Yeah, man, it sucks. Like these dudes. I think I described it in the Discord. It's like the team is full of precocious young players who feel like that they're, just biding their time before they go up to first grade, and they're kind of carrying themselves in a way where that's really obvious. And then you've got these other blokes who there's a few guys there. I'm not going to name names who, really don't. You can kind of feel like that they're kind of not really valued by the club, and kind of maybe thought that they were valued by the club, if you catch my drift. And then
Yeah.
there's a whole bunch of other dudes there that are just kind of making up the numbers. So yeah, again, it's similar to the Balmain side, really. Like when you've got it, like you just don't, you just have whole bunch of dudes who just aren't there to really play for each other or win. That it seems like a bit of a clicky team. It reminds me of West Tigers sides from like 2022, 2021, like where there's just a mixture of the dudes that feel like that they're the elite, and then dudes that feel like that they've been forgotten by the club, and then a whole bunch of reserve graders that are putting their best foot forward and trying, but they're just surrounded by those other blokes. So it's tough. I think this week though they've got a good chance because they've injected a lot of strength back into the side that wasn't there in the form of Luke Lolley comes back into the side, Sukar comes back into the side after playing well, Naden's back. So yeah, you might see an improved effort, but again, I think I don't know, man. I don't want to be. Sometimes I like reflect on these episodes when I get too into the nitty gritty, talking about reserve grade and pathways, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing?
People like our
but,
insights.
but
They,
it's,
they like
yeah,
they like pathways
like,
insights.
but
So it's very much appreciated. But I get where you're coming. I get where you're coming from. At the same time, reserve grade is a springboard to first grade, and sometimes it's not truly reflective. But in saying that, the great clubs always have a strong second grade, and Shane Richardson said as much himself. Look, there are if you look at that back line. Heath Mason, Luke Laulii, Solfar Tape, Brent Naden, Alex Lobb. That's not too dissimilar to what we threw up in first grade 12
no,
months
and I
ago.
think what somebody who's playing New South Wales Cup has to remember when they're running out in front of 100 people at Lidcombe Oval or whatever it is, what they have to remember is that it doesn't matter what side that they're playing for, they're only ever really three really good performances away from first grade in that grade. Like they are actually on show. Like if it might sound strange, but like if somebody like let's say Elza Kem, right? He's not even been around the club for more than a week. If he comes out
Yep.
and he puts in three consecutive performances where he scores a double, makes 40 tackles, puts out 80 minutes, and runs 200 meters, he's going to be on the extended bench halfway through the season. That's just how it is. So even though they're in New South Wales Cup right now, and it can feel like that they're a mile away, it's not true. You are actually as close as you've ever been, and you have to play like it. And you have to play like you would be playing if you were also playing in first grade. So it's not just about being a hero. It's not just about the X Factor plays. It's about doing that within the structure that the coach is trying to actually get you to play within. And that's how that's when the coaches in the NRL team are going to look at you as somebody who they can trust to give first grade minutes to. So I don't
Yeah.
know. It feels like a lot of lost guys. I see, some players got dropped this week that, you know, um, it's tough to see. But at the same time, maybe sometimes like you have to go backwards to go forwards, and you have to get a chance to actually like recuperate mentally and like rebuild what it was that brought you there in the first place.
Yeah, well, our boy Timmy Johansson's out. Jaden Tanner is out. Isaac Tuatupo Thompson, who just signed a full-time training contract with the West Tigers, is out. Tino Tavana is also out. So it makes for quite an interesting uh, dynamic. But at the
Josh
same
Felity got
time,
dropped to the bench too.
yeah, well, I'm going to talk about that. So Joel's has just asked me what do you think the chances are of doing the double against the Knights this weekend? We have a bit of first grade experience in the backs and a depleted Newcastle side. To Mac's point, talking about the bench, I worry about our bench, Joel's. I think that our back five will be great from a yardage and class point of view. I think Falls kicks reasonably well. I don't, compared to Jackson Hastings, I think they're both going to do a similar job. They'll kick well, they'll organise. I just look at our starting forward pack. I think on paper it's probably better than Newcastle's given the outs that they have. But having guys like Cody Hopwood and Blake Woodford on the bench compared to us having Jackson Rame and Ruben Porter, who you can make the argument are both back rowers, along with Josh Folletti, it concerns me slightly that we might be able to push out to a lead just like we did against Manly, and then the game is taken away from us. But yeah, look, on paper, yes, but I do like the 1, 6, and 7 for Newcastle. I'm a big fan of Connor Vitano. I think that if he was at another club, he would have played first grade by now. Liam Sutton's actually a Thirlmere boy, would you believe it? So I know him very well. Very talented player. Absolutely, like he is, a very good player at New South Wales Cup level. Jackson Hastings, let's face it, he shouldn't be playing New South Wales Cup. So sometimes a good spine is all you need. So, mate, I'd love to give you a prediction, but this Magpie side, they've been quite underwhelming to start the
Yeah,
year.
what you said, like I think that on paper, I would have picked the Magpie side to have won every game so far, like team for team, except for the game against Para.
Or the Warriors, to be honest,
Yeah,
with Tanner Boyd
I think, yeah,
and a
you're
lot.
right. Yeah, no, those two games, but at the same time, like it's a side that's got a sprinkling of first grade talent that most other New South Wales Cups don't have, and that should be enough to
Yeah.
get them over the line in most fixtures, but it's not. And you got to ask why. So, position for position, like the Magpie side this weekend, it looks dominant to that Knights side on paper, but
And the New South Wales Cup deity, Brent Naden, is playing. And, he has the ability to just he's the New South Wales Cup rising tide. He lifts every single one
he
of those
does.
reserve grade
He
ships.
does.
So
I don't know why they're not playing him at six. After how he played last year in the halves, Ackland, Ackland. I don't,
I agree. Well,
but why
where's
drop
Christian?
Felity, when you can
Well,
play Naden at six and keep Felity? Like I don't know.
where's Christian Mapapalangi? Have they given him a couple of weeks in Ron Massey
Is
beforehand?
he? But
Yeah,
is Mapapalangi actually ahead of any of these players in the outside backs? Like you're looking at Lob, who's a developmental player. Lolali is top 30. Fatape is top 30. Naden is top 30. Like where you playing Mapapa?
well, that's what I'm saying. Move Brent to 6.
Yeah.
Either put Ackland to the bench or send him back to send him back to Ron Massey Cup.
Yeah, you might see Mapapalangi play this weekend. To be honest, I reckon. Like he might come from outside the squad and actually be a late inclusion.
He hasn't been named anywhere. I just checked the Ron Massey team list. He hasn't been named anywhere, so I'm not too sure what's going on there. But nonetheless, he's one to genuinely keep an eye on. I've mentioned it on X a couple of times. He's got some real issues defensively that he needs to sort, but they thought he was going to be the next big thing in Newcastle once upon a time until injuries hit and a couple of other setbacks sort of set in. Holy Cross boy, so got some ties to Balmain. Yeah, we could do worse in terms of train and trial. Let's go. That's a low
It's
cost, high upside
it's
pick.
interesting that we've done that now two times this year, where we've taken a guy with pedigree like that, Thompson being the other, Tuipupu, Thompson being the other, like outside backs. Like I like it. It's like basically like taking a flyer on like a player who high upside potential if you can figure out how to actually make them click. But like, you're only signing them to a train and trial deal. You're only signing them for New South Wales Cup. Why not? These are the sort of signings that frustrated me that we used to not make. Like when you see players like that at other clubs going like, we're struggling for depth. We're struggling in New South Wales Cup, and these other guys are running around. Like, let's bring them in. So I like that. I like that. I like that there seems to be a little bit more tactical planning around bringing players from outside the squad into our New South Wales Cup scene. I like it.
I agree with you, and I hope that we see it in the coming weeks in the first grade side because I still think we're a back rower short, absolutely, and possibly a right centre and possibly a lock
But let's
forward.
talk.
But anyway,
Let's talk
that's it.
briefly for a second, Reedy, about the fact that now that Folletti's been dropped to the bench, we've got a top 30 player on the New South Wales Cup bench, one in the Ron Massey Cup and one in the Sydney Shield. On top of the fact that we're only playing with 28 players in the roster to begin with, like the fact that we're actually competitive in the NRL with that much, like lack of depth, glaring lack of depth, is pretty strong evidence to suggest that like the actual top 17 players in the side are pretty good.
Well, we've got a million spare in the cap, give or take, and they're playing with a top
Yeah,
24, a top
yeah,
23. And they haven't made any mid-season signings yet because I know how Richardson
yeah. He's
ticks.
waiting for the
Like,
permitted.
let's wait 6 weeks. Let's see who's unhappy. Let's see if there's any disruption. Let's see if anybody's given permission to negotiate elsewhere, and then we'll
Yeah,
pounce. So, look, most teams after their quarterly reviews, they start looking at contracted players and where they can shed some players. I mean, teams like, Parramatta are already doing it, but don't be surprised if the Roosters look at, some players and go, all right, you can go. We need to shed more cap space for whatever reason. Teams like St George Illawarra, for example, Shane Flanagan would be so fucking filthy with the way that they have started this season that I wouldn't be surprised if he starts wielding the axe from a roster point of view pretty quickly.
do you want
You know,
players from those clubs though? You look at how you
well,
look at like who we've signed in the past and versus like who we signed in the previous off season and how they've performed versus how our new signings have performed. And you can draw a very easy line between where they came from. Like all of the signings that we've got this year that are killing it came from good clubs. All of these
yeah.
dodgy shit signings that we've made in the past that ended up like hampering our salary cap for years all came from struggling clubs. So, do you really want to like be taking the scraps from Flanagan?
Well, dude, Isaiah Papali'i was contracted for this year at West
Mm,
Tigers. Richardson said we need to shed cap
mm.
space. He gave him permission to negotiate. Within 2 weeks, he'd sign with the Premiers. Now, I don't necessarily. I'm not saying that that Penrith got value for money because they
No, he's
haven't. I don't think he has not been good enough. He stunk it up at the
mm.
joint. But the point is that sometimes teams look at restructuring their cap, looking at their player roster, and seeing where they can find value. And sometimes you can find some opportunities that come up. So I'm sort of anticipating that to happen in the next 2 to 4 weeks.
I get where you're coming from, but like, look at how many like players were on big coin at the Tigers that like left the Tigers and actually became good. The answer is the answer
True.
is
But
no,
on the flip side, there's a guy like Terrell May.
right? But he came from a Rooster side that was top four. So like the point I'm trying to make here is like I get the idea of like bringing in like maybe like a somebody like a I don't know, I can't even think of a name, but like Ryan Madison I mentioned like a couple of weeks ago, like somebody who's gonna do a decent job as a first grader. I don't think you can expect somebody to come from Parramatta or the Dragons or whatever on good coin that's been shown the door that's going to come and do much else aside from like just be a squatty man. Like and when you look,
That's what we need,
it
Mac.
it
We
is
don't
it
have
is, but it
depth.
isn't because like as you said, we've got $1 million extra in the cap. Like so,
Well,
like I mean, you're not gonna. It's not like you're gonna find somebody amazing either. But like,
agree. Well, let's quickly talk about it. We finally got a link to a player in the market, Kai
who we're
Pearce-Paul.
playing this weekend?
That's right. So keep an eye on him. But effectively, what has happened is that obviously the Knights have just signed Dylan Brown. They overpaid to get Kai over from England. They've basically said to Kai, look, you need to go and have a look at other places just to see what your value is and what other teams value you at, and we'll give you our offer and we'll have last refusal. I would anticipate the West Tigers will blow every other potential comer out of the water. I know that Canberra are after him, but Canberra
They don't
have
need him.
Matty Nicholson, who looks like the buy of the year, Huddy Young, Zach Hosking, and they've just re-signed Simi Sasungi. They do not
No.
have the $650,000, $700,000 in the cap that we do to sign Kai. And again, I think we'll probably blow Newcastle out of the water. So it's like, he might take, a 150K pay cut to stay. But at the same time, he gets to play off the hip of, potentially the greatest young half we have ever seen in Lachlan Galvin on that right edge.
I agree with you. I actually think IPS Paul's pretty likely to end up at Tigers based on the reports and based on what you said about Canberra's current roster composition versus ours. We're going to overvalue him compared to what they will. Newcastle will not have that much room left to play in the cap with them that they're paying Brown and already paying Ponga. So I don't.
And guys like Lucas are due an upgrade. Tom Cant's to be a guy that, is pretty important moving forward.
Exactly. And Newcastle actually seem like they've got more coming through in that position than we do. Like we're desperate for a back rower. But we're talking about him for next year, aren't we? Like if we're signing him now,
Yeah.
are you suggesting that potentially if we sign him and Newcastle start to go a little bit pear-shaped, that we might actually potentially like be able to negotiate him out early? Because I could see it, like, because it might mean that they might get to front load Ponga a little bit so that they can like offset a bit of what's coming down the line from Brown's contract, maybe.
I think it might actually be if they try and get Dylan in early. If they hypothetically think to themselves, look, we are one absolute gun away, they might just say, look, we need to strengthen our spine and we're a chance at top 6, if not top 4, and maybe they look at doing a deal. I'm not saying it absolutely happens, but look, they've got Tom Kent, who's been excellent. They've got Frizz playing 13, and to be quite frank, he's better suited to an edge. They've got Brodie Jones there as well, who does a job middle and edge similar to Frizz. I'm not saying it's a foregone conclusion, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. And we have a lot of money right now. And I would assume we do some front loading. And Galvin, should he re-sign, he'll get a slice of that pie. But
that's probably your best case scenario, Jared. What you're describing here, like if we can somehow manage to like get Kai Pearce-Paul over mid-season, it's probably our best case scenario. Hawko in the chat's also pointed out that the Broncos probably a side that's going to probably need to bloodlet as well. I think that Brisbane are also a side who probably have players at that club that we might actually have a genuine chance of getting, because of the fact that we've got that connection to the city through Richardson. And his fingers are run deep in this city when it comes to like player managers and stuff like this, the lower grade clubs in the city. So, and we were pretty close to landing Kobe Hetherington in the off season, and he hasn't exactly set the world on fire at Brisbane. So you might find that Madge might reverse his decision to actually like keep Kobe.
Yeah, the other one to look at is Dean Mariner. He is in my opinion, a superstar in waiting.
He's a very good player. He would be pretty frustrated being stuck behind Shibasaki, but I gotta actually give Madge a hat tip. Shibasaki's been incredible.
He liked Shibasaki. He tried to sign him when he was at the Tigers match.
He's been really good. Like he would.
Yeah, he has. He's done good things. But with that in mind, a more talented player in Mariner, he may buy into the culture and deal with it and wait for his opportunity and take it with both hands. But there's also a chance the rival clubs will get in his ear and say, "Hey," and I would hope that Shane Richardson is that person.
He is that person. We know he's that person.
Oh yeah, but look, we'll see what happens. Look, let's talk free agency in depth next week. But yeah, we definitely need to do something to both strengthen the 17 and the players down below. Flegg had a win, a convincing one too against Manly, which was nice. Iverson Maddo had an incredible first half. He scored a insane solo try, so have a look at it. Then he threw an inside ball for a try. Then there was a grubber that he kicked for a try. Solo Sekuru did well to score in the left corner, and development player Will Craig also got on the score sheet all before half time, and pretty much by then the game was a foregone conclusion. You saw the second half, anything?
Solid team, man. Solid team. I think that the Flegg side's going to do well this year because they're going all right. They look like a top 8 side as it is to me, and I think that they've got improvement in them once we sort of like get halfway through the season, I think I mentioned last week, once some of the really talented SG ball players start to funnel into that side, and some of the, you know, no, I won't say lesser quality flag players, but the Marcassinis of the world are first graders in waiting, as we know, that are definitely going to feature in that side. And then there'll also be probably some players from New South Wales Cup that end up going back down there as well. So I think the flag side's got the potential to go on a run, as long as they find a good balance. The thing that frustrates me about West Tigers pathway sides over the last couple of years is it doesn't seem like the club values winning the comp in those grades. It purely looks like that those pathways teams just serve the first grade side, which obviously that is the truth of the matter at the end of the day. But once we get to the point where the first grade side's solid, top 17 is solid, then it should start to actually have a trickle down effect where you've got the New South Wales Cup side gets some cohesion about it, and then the flag side gets some cohesion about it. And at that point, once that's like the consistent new normal, I would really like to see them actually, value picking and sticking to the sides. The thing about the Balmain SG ball side this year was it was pretty much the same team all season. So the fact that even though they copped some solid losses, that side finishing on 5-4 is probably a testament a little bit to that, to the fact that you can win as a team if you're just cohesive. You can win against potentially better talented sides, and that's the risk I see with the flag side. If there's a lot of chopping and changing and stuff like that, I think that they'll struggle. But if we can keep the core 1, 6, 7, and 9 together, if we can keep the middles together there, I think that they'll do good business.
They've kept a relatively similar side, so hopefully they continue. Newcastle on 1 and 4, interestingly, they're normally a very, very good flag side. So hopefully another win this week, and those boys can really begin to build some momentum.
Who's the player that? Sorry, let me just check this side. There was a player that really stood out for me on the weekend. I want to call out somebody who I probably haven't really talked about before. Max Tauatua.
Yeah, he's legit.
He is really good, man. We've talked about Tavana, we've talked about Craig, we've talked about Saukuru quite a lot. Max Tauatua looks better than them, to be honest, to my eye. And the other one that played their first game of the season was Cameron Cannan, he came from outside the roster. He wasn't named, and I mentioned him last week. I was like, where is he? And then suddenly, lo and behold, he showed up. He was really good. He was he's kept Tavana out of the fullback jersey this week, which is surprising. But I heard that Canaan had a really good preseason. I think that he trained a lot with the New South Wales Cup side.
He did.
And he's young, so I think Canaan's still SG ball eligible. Is he? If not, he's only 1 year out of it. He's definitely not an old flag player. So I think that he could be one to watch. I think Canaan's got the potential to be a first grader as an outside back, not so much as a fullback, but which is again, looking at it now that I think about it, I'm like, I would like to see Canaan and Tavana switch, because I think Tavana actually has potential to be a fullback more so than an outside back. But anyway, it is what it is.
It's a stacked back line.
It is a very good back line, yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully another win for those boys.
The winger that's named for the Knights, DeCourcy, is some player.
Yeah, he's legit. He's out of Penrith. He's normally a centre. I'm surprised they're playing him on the wing, but yeah, he's a phenomenal footballer.
He's one of the most talented young footballers going around. I think that you'll see him in first grade very soon, and he'll hit the ground running pretty hard when he gets there.
I agree with you there, mate. I think we're done. Anything else?
No, go Tigers. Sorry that I dropped out there with the technical issues. Good to see everybody in the chat. We're going to try to do this at the same time every Team List Tuesday. So, expect it, plan for it, clear your schedules, tell your missus that you're busy. Stay back from work.
Tell your missus that you're busy watching two drunks just talk about football with no real opinion.
Despite this, I am now 108 days sober, so I am no drunk.
That is elite, mate. Well done. That is sensational.
Yes, I am Mr. Sobriety, a role model citizen of sobriety. Just if you're out there struggling on the piss, just stop drinking. It's pretty easy.
There you have it. Alcohol advice with one Joe McCord. West Tigers Faithful, episode 27. You guys have been great. Thanks so much. We'll speak to you next week after a win.
It is tough. Sorry, guys. If you're struggling out there, seek help.
Respect.
Yeah.
See you next week. Another wing cap.
We're only strangers.